Chapter 1 of What Prohibition Has Done to America. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. What Prohibition Has Done to America by Fabian Franklin. Chapter 1. Perverting the Constitution. The object of a constitution, like that of the United States, is to establish certain fundamentals of government in such a way that they cannot be altered or destroyed by the mere will of a majority of the people, or by the ordinary processes of legislation. The framers of the Constitution saw the necessity of making a distinction between these fundamentals and the ordinary subjects of lawmaking, and accordingly they, and the people who gave their approval to the Constitution, deliberately arrogated to themselves the power to shackle future majorities in regard to the essentials of the system of government which they brought into being. They did this with a clear consciousness of the object which they had in view, the stability of the new government and the protection of certain fundamental rights and liberties. But they did not for a moment entertain the idea of imposing upon future generations, through the extraordinary sanctions of the Constitution, their views upon any special subject of ordinary legislation. Such a proceeding would have seemed to them far more monstrous, and far less excusable, than the tyranny of George III and his Parliament, which had given rise to the American Revolution. Until the adoption of the 18th Amendment, the Constitution of the United States retained the character which properly belongs to the organic law of a great federal republic. The matters with which it dealt were of three kinds, and three only: the division of powers as between the federal and the state governments, the structure of the federal government itself, and the safeguarding of the fundamental rights of American citizens. These were things that it felt essential to remove from the vicissitudes attendant upon the temper of the majority at any given time. There was not to be any doubt from year to year as to the limits of federal power on the one hand and state power on the other, nor as to the structure of the federal government and the respective functions of the legislative, executive, and judicial departments of that government, nor as to the preservation of certain fundamental rights pertaining to life, liberty, and property. That these things, once laid down in the organic law of the country, should not be subject to disturbance except by the extraordinary and difficult process of amendment prescribed by the Constitution, was the dictate of the highest political wisdom, and it was only because of the manifest wisdom upon which it was based that the Constitution, in spite of many trials and drawbacks, commanded, during nearly a century and a half of momentous history, the respect and devotion of generation after.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?